It's been a funny old Six Nations. One-man Team Italy now field a completely different lineup. Wales managed to make Corey Hill look like an actual international class player and not just a British and Irish Lion. And England, who expected to finish first, instead finished fifth, which is only ever a good thing at an orgy. I don't know why I felt any need to include a joke there, considering the thought of England finishing fifth is funny enough to fans of 5 of the Six Nations. However, for fans of England itself, it's hard to see the funny side when your team has gone, in less than a year, from the cusp of a world record winning streak to losing to a team masterminded by Lionel Beauxis, a player with the common sense and creativity of a lemming. So, what changed? The truth is, basically nothing. I think England's winning habit has been papering over the cracks for some time, but now they've lost 3 on the bounce, people are finally starting to look down at their floor and go, "Oh, look, there's cracks. Have they been there long?" For more than a year, England have created very little and struggled at the breakdown and relied on players who are out of form. They just happened to win while they were doing it, because if there's one thing this England team were very good at, it's winning. People don't talk about it enough, but knowing how to win is an instinct that some teams have and some teams don't. The 2011 Wales team never had that instinct and would have lost that World Cup semi-final even with Warburton. The classic Paul O'Connor, Ronan O'Gara Munster team made careers out of having this instinct. Based on the core of double Champions Cup winning Saracens players, England were great at closing out games and pulling victories from the jaws of having to read weeks of "What's happened to Eddie Jones's England?" think pieces match on match. However, lately this habit has fallen out of the team and slipped in amongst more cracks than that guy at the orgy. Let's start at the beginning. What were England doing in the first place, and why isn't it working anymore? When he first took over, Thunderbird's villain lookalike Eddie Jones was very upfront in his desire to have England play like a traditional English team. That meant having a forward pack made up of lots of nasty bastards, and a fly-half who can kick the points and steer the team around the field. In fact, Jones doubled down on this by picking 2 fly-halves and a few extra bastards in the backline. Under previous coach Stuart Lancaster, England were a very good, well put together team, unable to overcome a few key problems. They had no specialist 7, leading to issues at breakdown. They had no idea who they were picking in the centre, meaning they couldn't get any creativity going behind the scrum. What Eddie Jones did with England is exactly the same as what he did with Japan. He recognised the side's shortcomings, but instead of working in the short term or trying and failing to fix something out of his control, he built a game plan around their limitations. Instead of trying to turn the pipsqueak Japanese side into a lineup of 20-foot-tall Tongans like John Kirwan had before him, Jones devised a game plan built around their small size, looking to work the ball from side to side as wide as possible to tie the opposition pack into corners in order to create space. So, how did he do this with England? Let's start the breakdown. Most teams field a specialist open-side flanker, a player who's an expert at turning the ball over and disrupting the opposition at the ruck. Lately, it's become fashionable to field 2 at once. The problem for England, though, was they didn't even have 2 of them in the country. So instead of having 1 or 2 players who were outstanding at the tackle area, Jones opted to change their approach and use 7 or 8 who were pretty good there instead. England's main strategy for winning the ball back was to focus on smashing the opposition backwards, using the collisions caused to either force mistakes or allow the tackler themselves, rather than a specialist coming in separately, to get over the ball. Because their entire pack were competent jackalers, it allowed them to win a steady flow of turnover ball without the need for a specialist. It's like if everyone in the household can cook pretty well, there's no need for one amazing chef or the Just Eat app. In contrast, look at the tactics Scotland fielding 2 out-and-out open sides pulled against them this year. They deliberately concede an extra few inches, pulling the ball carrier further from their support, giving Watson or Barkley an extra half second to sneak in and pilfer the ball. England aren't that streetwise, but they are streetwise enough to know that they aren't that streetwise. It's a bit like when I couldn't think of an example to give in an A-level politics exam, so I quoted Batman Begins instead and got marks for it. It's using what you know rather than what you should know. However, there are a number of issues with England's reliance on smashing over the ball, but most of these are calculated risks on Jones's behalf because they're generally only really exploitable if England are playing badly and deserve to lose anyway. If a team is able to play the breakdown smartly as Scotland did, it's hard for England to argue. The other problem is it totally backfires on you if your pack is outmuscled. England normally look to bully a side up front, and even when the opposition pack matches them around the park, like Wales or Italy did, all England has to do is win enough individual collisions here and there, and they can sneak ball off them. Against France, they were constantly knocked backwards by a pack that was basically just 8 clones of Sweetums from the Muppets wearing berets. Suddenly, without a specialist open side to snaffle them some ball, they were suffocated. Ireland, on the other hand, took a little from column A, little from column B, and turned it into a comprehensive daylight smash and grab in the middle of a surprisingly residential area. This has been a consistent problem for England for over a decade now, and it's become a kind of chicken and rugby ball situation. In many ways, the only proper 7 England have available to them right now is the exception that proves the rule. The now outstanding Sam Underhill was ignored by Premiership clubs as a teenager and ultimately only got a pro contract with the Ospreys because he happened to go to Swansea Uni. If he'd followed in my footsteps and gone to the University of Derby, he'd probably spent February sat in a CV workshop, not the England training squad. The Premiership is an incredibly physical, tight league. The threat of relegation is such that it can ruin a player's career and in the past has threatened to bankrupt clubs. Teams don't have the opportunity to take risks. On the other hand, the Celtic and Southern Hemisphere nations have an embarrassment of riches in the 7 shirt right now, and they all play in leagues without relegation. So it begs the question, is the Premiership the reason for a key weakness in English rugby? I'd tell you the answer, but because he heard it involved England and rugby, John Barclay stole it from me while I was recording the voiceover, so I just have to leave it up as a debate instead. Once they have or haven't smashed over the ball, another issue arises, but this one Jones didn't consider in advance. This time last year, relying on the tackler to steal the ball was an effective tactic. Then World Rugby changed the rules. Now, instead of getting up and being able to compete for the ball, the tackler must disengage and re-enter from the gate, as though they weren't involved in the first place. Suddenly, the thing England did can't be done. This has affected all international teams, but seems to have had a bigger impact on England than most. It almost makes you feel sorry for England that their main source of ball has been ripped away from them, which is the stroke of a pen. I mean, it really made me wonder what could have happened to cause World Rugby to make such a vicious change that would personally target England in changing the rules. Previously on Rugby.
It's only a tackle if 2 players from each side aren't contesting a ruck, and hence why they're allowed to be offside.
I want to know what the rule was.
I am the referee, I'm not the coach.
I mean, who'd have thought an Eddie Jones side would have been outfought? I mean, who'd have thought an Eddie Jones side would have been outfought? Who'd have thought an Eddie Jones side would have been outfought?
It wasn't rugby, so we haven't played a game of rugby yet. Did we react quick enough? Like, it's hard when you don't play rugby, you know, it's difficult because you're not playing rugby anymore, you're playing a different game. Let's be honest, he had a terrible...
So you weren't happy with how he performed?
Look, he had a terrible day because he wasn't refereeing rugby, and he's a rugby referee.
What about the performance?
Well, there's no performance because we didn't play rugby.
So when you realise that World Rugby changed the laws because Eddie Jones acted like a petulant little shit when someone thought of doing something novel before he did, you kind of lose all sympathy for him and find it ultimately funnier that it's backfired on him in the long run. Or at least I do. The other main problem with England at the moment is their attack. Now, I've been putting off talking about England's attack because I watched them throw a ball around in the latter half of the Six Nations, and most of the time I had absolutely no goddamn idea what in the ever-loving, glorious name of shit they were trying to achieve. For anyone that hasn't figured this out by now, I watch quite a lot of rugby, and I can generally tell when a rugby team is trying to score a try. And an awful lot of the time, when England had the ball, I had no inclination that they might be trying to score a try. In fact, it made me wonder what they could possibly be trying to do instead. So I came up with some theories that seemed more likely than the fact that they were trying to score a try. It was almost made worse by the fact there were moments in which they didn't look so bad. There were plays in which they'd unpeel the defence like a banana, using a pre-planned set play, then they'd proceed to just shit on the metaphorical banana rather than eating it and making a metaphorical break. I know it's a rubbish metaphor, but it's still more than England's attack deserved. Generally speaking, under Eddie Jones, England have not been creative. They've scored lots of tries, but mostly off opposition mistakes. This isn't to demean them, it was a deliberate and legitimate tactic. Even the best bit of attacking play England put in this year's championship was just Farrell's ingenious means of exploiting 2 spontaneous Welsh mistakes. Last autumn, England put in a record win over Australia, yet none of the points came from constructive attack, just pressure and an effective kick chase. However, if we look at the best England have played under Jones, they did have a cohesive attack. But they also had a different attack coach, by which I mean they actually had an attack coach. During the tours of Argentina and Australia, in which England have played some really exciting rugby, they were joined by former Australia back and Goodfellas extra Glenn Ella. For the Six Nations? Nobody. They had a skills coach, but no attack coach, and boy did they play like it. England are very well drilled, their passing and kicking is excellent, and clearly skills coach Rory Teague is doing a very good job, but without anyone devising specialist moves and patterns, you're going to struggle to break the best teams down. There are also other smaller problems with England. One's the scrum half position. Since Dan Robson shot Eddie Jones' dog, slept with his wife and stole his Pringles all in the same training session, England have only really been left with two real options at 9 in Ben Youngs and Danny Care. The problem is, the only thing as erratic as Youngs' form is Care's play. Now, Danny Care plays a bit like a chicken. He's very good at running away and will often enough provide you with nutrients, but he's also a bit of a cock and not exactly built to kick. In the later end of the Six Nations, England were even forced to pick Richard Wigglesworth at scrum half, who's basically an out-of-date ready-salted bag of crisps that someone taught to box kick. However, the biggest selection problem is Dylan Hartley at hooker. Now, Eddie Jones continues to leave out triple test lion Jamie George, yet nonetheless he managed to make the same level of impact sat on the bench as Hartley does on the pitch in the same time. That is to say, absolutely none. Elliot Dee, winning just his third cap for Wales, played 11 minutes against England and yet made more tackles, metres, carries and offloads than Hartley did in 63. Over the last couple of years, Hartley has managed to sort out his infamous discipline problems, but his ingenious means of doing that was just to make himself so utterly ineffective and pointless on the field that referees and pundits forget he's on the pitch until he's hauled off around 50 minutes to allow a far superior player to do what he couldn't, which is, namely, playing rugby. Having a guy this uninspiring as your captain, not ideal. The main positive for England, however, is that their defence remained sturdy throughout the championship. The majority of tries England did concede generally came from an attacking team taking a risk that easily could have backfired on them. This is another structure that's a calculated risk on Jones's behalf, as it encourages sides to pull moves that need both luck and skill to score off. If the opposition team is slightly short on either, it leads to the kind of mistake that England aim to exploit. This is the kind of facet England can build their game back up around. If they can stop South Africa scoring tries over the summer, it could get the momentum right back on track. Now, England have slipped into the cracks, but there's still a way out of it. And on behalf of fans of 5 of the Six Nations, I just want to personally ask something of England. Could you please make your scramble back to an inevitable World Cup final next year as funny as this Six Nations has been? I'm not saying you have to lose, but if you could just maybe dress Chris Robshaw up as a chicken or hire an attack coach that looks like Jeff Tracy, it would keep the spirit of this funny old Six Nations alive. Hello, it's me, the funny little hairy man that pops up at the end of these videos. I'm back again. I just want to say thank you to everyone that suggested I do the England video. That's why I did the England video. There's quite a few of you, so hopefully I've made at least a few of you happy. I also want to say thank you to everyone that has liked, subscribed, tweeted, emailed, reddited, in any way let me know that they enjoyed the videos and they liked the videos. I really appreciate it. Even the one guy who came to my house, found my address, tracked me down, held me down at gunpoint until I agreed to do a video on the best bums and most handsome men in rugby. But enough about Israel for now. I also want to say the next video shouldn't take as long. I'm already working on it. It's not a topic that anyone has asked for, anyone's requested, but that's why I've chosen to do it. I have kept a list of all your suggestions. I do read them all, so I do appreciate that. I will be moving on to some of those shortly. I'm going to try and do them more regularly than I have over the last couple of weeks. Otherwise, I just want to say thank you very much once more. I keep saying that, but I do mean it. And I will see you in a few weeks' time. Bye.